Hi. So, as we build the foundations about how to approach morality, it's helpful to understand a few of the key terms that are used to kind of describe ways of approaching moral codes, ways that people wrap their heads around what's right and what's wrong. So, one important term to understand is objectivism. So, I try to avoid too many isms, scientific language or philosophical language that it helps, it clarifies, it's precise. So that's really important. That's why we have so much special language, but it can also be jargon. It can also make it difficult to share with other people because it's such specialized language that most people don't understand it. So in this course and in general, I try to be precise, but that comes at a trade-off with getting into jargon, and I tend to lean toward trying to use more everyday language. So objectivism is one of those isms that is important for us to have in our understanding, to have it be part of our toolbox as we build up this foundation for morality. And objectivism is the idea that there is a greater truth. There is something to explain what is right, what is wrong. It's objective. So taking the ism off, objective truth, objective right. These are things that are beyond anyone's control. You could think of it as coming from a higher power. You could think of it as coming from the universe, from somewhere up there, the ether. There is an objective right or wrong. That is objectivism. So I've got this little package of hand sanitizer wipes. These are pretty valuable during a global pandemic, right? And so, sometimes you see someone who might really need one of these little hand wipes. Perhaps you pass a homeless person on the street. They need to clean their hands. Maybe you just saw them shake hands with someone who is coughing into their hands, likely has coronavirus. So here's a person who really needs these more than I do. And if the objectivist view is right, then there is a right thing to do in that situation. It doesn't matter so much about who we're talking about. There is a correct thing to do, a right thing to do, a good thing to do. It's coming from on high, and so perhaps in this case it would be to offer a hand wipe or the whole package to that homeless person who needs it more than I do. So that would be an objectivist view. There is a right thing to do, and that's it. Determining what that thing is, as we'll see, is often what's complicated, but the objectivist view is that these things kind of are handed down to us, or they're greater than any person and what they think about it. So that's objectivism. It's often contrasted with relativism. So relativism, take the ism off and it's relative. Things are relational. Things are a little more soft and squishy, right? What's right and wrong is not handed down from on high. What's right or wrong depends on the people involved and how they see the world. So relative, it depends on perspective and vision. And so it matters who you're talking about. It's not a grand truth that applies to everyone necessarily. It may depend very much more on the circumstances at hand. So there's a couple different types of relativism. Cultural relativism would say, within this culture, the appropriate thing to do is this. Maybe you're talking about something relatively minor, like in Southern culture, gentlemen hold the door open for a lady who's about to pass through. Or maybe we're talking about something that's a more drastic, important sort of thing. Some puberty rite of passage rituals in different countries are quite intense. And so within that culture, with cultural relativism, we would say the appropriate thing to do is to go through these coming of age rituals, right? If you're in a different culture, they're going to view that ritual very differently because of the cultural lens they have on it. So what's right or wrong, it depends what culture you're situated within, what their traditional practices are. So you can imagine religion comes in and plays a big role in this. So another kind of relativism is subjective relativism. And this is taking it down from the cultural level, so a big group of people, down to often the individual level. So the right thing for me to do is what I believe the right thing to do is. That's what determines what's right or wrong, is what I think, how I feel about it. So going to the hand wipes, if I feel like the right thing to do would be to offer one or the whole package of these to the homeless person I passed, then that makes it the right thing to do. That doesn't mean I'll do it, right? There's always tough choices and trade-offs that we make. We're often tempted to do things we don't feel are the right thing to do. But to determine what the right thing to do would be, we kind of look inside ourselves and say, should I give this to that homeless guy? Yes, I should. Am I going to? Maybe not, but I should, right? And that would be the right thing to do from a subjective relativist perspective. The cultural relativist perspective would say, well, what does my kind of society, what does my culture say I should do about offering something like this to someone who may need it more than me? So those are kind of the big branches of philosophical reasoning foundations for where moral codes come from. Objectivist, they come from on high. Relativist, it's much more situational, either from a cultural perspective or with subjective, we're talking about an individual perspective. There are other ways of building up a moral code, such as emotism, that really morals are about emotions people feel. A lot of these other ones are going to be less important. As far as the isms, I want you guys to know objectivism, stuff comes from on high. Relativism, things are much more relational. It depends who we're talking about and what they feel about it, either from an individual sense or a cultural sense. Those are the big ideas from chapter 2 of our reading. Thanks.